This is Free Speech TV joining you from Netroots Nation 2025 in New Orleans. I'm Sonali Kolhatkar, host of Rising Up with Sonali, and I'm bringing you conversations with activists and change makers attending the largest progressive political conference in the United States. Joining me now is Ash-Lee Woodard Henderson, co-executive director of Highlander Research and Education Center, and so much more. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So first, let's talk about the anti-Trump resistance, which is all that is on most people's minds these days. This conference is happening at a very important moment in U.S. history, bringing together on its 20th year activists at a time when our work is needed. And I know you've been involved in the No Kings protests. Yeah. I know you've been involved in strategizing around around what's needed to hold this administration accountable. The No Kings rally that took place earlier this year, how effective was that in your opinion? Was it just step one or did it do its job?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an excellent question, in part because it makes me excited about talking about the legacy of movement. So I don't even think it was step one, right? Like I think that there were interventions that were happening from movement building, base building, trainings that were happening, all in preparation for this political moment. I said it on stage in the keynote, and I'd say again with this family of folks that tune into Free Speech TV is that, you know, many of us told folks this was coming. It wasn't a secret that the right-wing fascistic movements, that the authoritarian front was trying to build and consolidate its wealth and its power. And so for all of the folks that have been the canaries in the coal mines, the Southerners, the Black folks, the queer folks, the trans folks, the disabled folks, the folks in public health, the climate activists who were like, y'all, we're ringing the alarm. All of that work, I think, led to the intervention that was No Kings. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the We Are Worth Fighting For work that happened at the end of last year after the election, the hands-off work that happened, the all the work that labor has been putting in to talk about the fact that we need to be prioritizing workers over billionaires. All of that was momentum building to the point of No Kings. And so do I think it was step one? No. Do I think it was the last step? No. Do I think it's been effective? Absolutely. I think there is a whole constituency of folks that had not been touched, who had not been absorbed into organizations, newly politicized folks who have been disillusioned by the mythology of the U.S. state and are realizing that the fire is coming from inside the house. The privileges and things that they thought would be their protection have eroded. And are now seeing that they actually have to be proactive about making democracy happen. It's not something that you can take for granted that everybody else just makes possible. I've seen the 130,000 people that have registered for noncompliance training on the 1 million rising calls, right? So there are multiple things that are coming from that. And that, you know, just to be transparent, that the No Kings movement, this coalition of forces that are coming together across differences, this broad front of folks that are saying no to this authoritarian regime, that is a one step. That's one step. That's one piece of the puzzle. We also have to have a vision about what we're trying to actually have happen, right? It's not just that we don't want Trump or his minions or the billionaires to be controlling our government like some minority rule stuff. What we also want is healthcare for all of our people. What we also want is living wage jobs. What we also want is not a military budget that's funding the genocide of people here or anywhere. Right. What we want is the abolition of ICE, et cetera, et cetera. And now's not a time to skimp. This is the moment where we actually demand and implement what we deserve for ourselves and not just what we would concede to, like the idea that we could go back to a normal that used to exist before the Trump administration.
You're bringing up, for me, especially the standard Democratic Party's
100%.
Rhetoric to Trumpism, which is we can solve all the issues later about the need for housing and healthcare. Right now, we just need to get rid of Trump. And that building or their attempt to build a party momentum on anybody but Trump spectacularly backfired.
It failed every time. It's going to fail every time. Because what we know is like doing the work of the opposition for them, like doing the work of authoritarians and fascists is by letting them other communities and be like, oh, we'll get to you after we win. Well, that's never really worked, one. And two, What we want is a democracy that includes all of us. Otherwise, it's not a democracy. That's the moral of the story. That is the lesson to be learned, that until we're all free, none of us are free. Fannie Lou Hamer said it. It was right. It's still right. So, I think that, corporate Democrats who are not willing to be the opposition party are not all of a sudden going to save us from the hell that we're currently living in, the hellscape that they helped usher in, quite frankly, by not having a backbone and being accountable to their constituencies, especially in marginalized and targeted communities. And what we need is an opposition party. I'm putting my eggs in the Working Families Party bucket.
Okay, I want to ask you a sort of controversial question. We are at Netroots Nation. Yeah. There are no Republicans here, naturally, but there are a few Democrats. Yeah. And we have Bernie Sanders, who is on his Fight Oligarchy tour, and people have criticized Sanders with love, with this idea of you are firing people up legitimately on righteous issues and funneling them into the dead end that is the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. What are the conversations you might or might not be having in person or in your head with people who are elected, who represent the party, who are trying to change it from the inside for many years and not succeeding?
Yeah, kind of decades, centuries. I think that this is where I start, is that when my elders and ancestors said by any means necessary, they meant by all the means. So I don't minimize that for some, their life's calling, their vocation is to try to shift that monstrosity from the inside out. I think, frankly, most of us have a really juvenile understanding of the multi-headed structure that is the Democratic Party, right? It's not just the electeds. The electeds aren't the full party. They are the elected representatives of a party. There are multiple different organizations underneath all that is the Democratic Party, right? And there are caucuses. It's like a huge bit of infrastructure. And the idea that we're going to change all of that as quickly as we need to in this political climate, I think is a little naive. Now, on the flip side, I could have a prefigurative vision of what I want for my political experience as a part of the electorate that is also naive, right? I'm not going to get to, it's not going to be Denmark overnight. We're not going to have 20 parties that can all participate in the democratic process overnight. I wish we could, but frankly, most of our parties that are alternatives to the Democrats are small, they're minuscule, they're not resourced, and we really only hear from them when it's an electoral season. Luckily, that's not the party I pay dues to, but that's certainly several of them, right? So I don't want to play a game where we're doing purity politics at the expense of our people. So I think there's a balance between what is a concession that I think is what corporate Democrats are doing every freaking day by not being an opposition party to fascists. There is what never Trumpers are doing to concede to the GOP that is also equally as disgusting. And there's a purity politics sometimes on the left that is irresponsible and causing people great suffering. So I think, by any means necessary means by all the means, we actually do need inside-outside strategies. More and more, it's going to take a broad front. The thing that I need to know that we're aligned on is that you don't want Trump in the presidency, that you don't want fascists in Congress up and down the ballot. I don't want my mayor to be a fascist. I don't want my boss to be a fascist. I don't want my landlord to be a fascist. And if you agree with me on that and you are willing to actually take a risk to make it not happen, we can work for now. We can work for now.
You were talking earlier about, let's talk about how we get there. So you were talking earlier about non-compliance. Yeah. Tell me what that means in the context of organizing today around Trump and Trumpism. I would like to think that most of us aren't complying with Trump's agenda, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tricky. I think one, non-compliance isn't some new thing. It's not some fancy new movement jargon that isn't stuff that some of us, like you said, have already been doing for as long as our people have been in this country. It's, to me, what makes me excited about the tactical intervention of noncompliance, the framework of noncompliance and non-cooperation is that it's accessible. It's multi-tactical. So if you boycott, you're being non-compliant. If you are, if you're a privileged person that maybe got to graduate from Harvard and you were pushing the president of Harvard to not comply with Trump's bullying, you might be non-compliant. you are non-cooperating, right? Like if you are a person that will show up and do nonviolent civil disobedience and direct action, then you are a person that is not complying. If you're a person that is willing to put up a sign in your small business that says no ICE, you're non-compliant. So there are multiple ways that people can participate, almost to the point of being overwhelming. But the point is both to saturate our communities so that people know that they're not alone in their disdain for this administration and its authoritarian roots, and to actually make the evil of that administration uncomfortable so that it gets them out of power.
So like creating a culture where we are making it very visible that we do not agree with what's being done.
That we don't agree, and we'll shut it down.
Yeah.
And I think there's, this framework we've been popularizing, block and build. It's like there's the piece of non-cooperation and non-compliance that's about blocking the harms that the authoritarians are doing and saying that it's bad and putting pressure on them. That's a huge part of it for me. But there's also a piece of what we're building as the alternative, because what happens if we're right and we win, right? If we stop Donald Trump and we get him out of office and we get all the other bad guys out of office, we vote them off the island, we'll have to govern the next day, right? And so I feel excited about the ways that we can use mutual aid as noncompliance, right? They're getting rid of healthcare. They're passing the big, disgusting bill, 17 million people without healthcare. That's not even to mention the people like in my state, Tennessee, where the governor didn't expand Medicaid in the first place and rural hospitals are already closing and people are already dying, right? So I actually can think about mutual aid, not as charity, because that's not mutual aid, but as reciprocity in our relationships with communities, where if they're going to get rid of healthcare, then we put on health fairs where public health professionals can come and you can get your diabetes checked, you can get your blood pressure checked, and you can do a line dance and get some good food all in one place, right? Like there's so many creative ways that we can use noncompliance that actually build community, that actually, again, continues to block and repair what they're trying to destroy.
So realizing the world that we want and not waiting for it to be manifested through policy. And this is such an interesting question for me, because when we do realize the world that we want, we create the culture to make it more possible to have it actually happen through policy.
Yeah, my dad, who's a huge free speech TV fan, would say ain't nothing to it but to do it. And I think that's the opportunity right now, that democracy isn't a thing that's given to us. It's a practice. It's our practice. It's our way. And the more that we practice democracy together in all of the micro and macro ways, the more that we practice liberation in the micro and macro ways, the more we do solidarity. It's a doing thing. Democracy is a doing thing. The more that we do that, it makes it more impossible for the evil of this administration to hold.
Finally, what's next? We started with a discussion on whether No King's Day was successful or effective, et cetera. How do you build on that? What are you planning for the next step? It's going to be a long 4 years, and we'll be lucky if it's just 4 years.
Yeah, we'll be lucky. But that's the thing. I'm a person of faith, and whether you believe in a great by and by or not, what I believe is that ain't no power like the power of the people. And if we see the success of No Kings as having harnessed millions of people's energy and joining a movement that is not going to cooperate or stand idly by and let like this authoritarianism take over our country and harm our people in a long-lasting way, I have hope that we can win everything that we deserve right now if we actually are intentional about making it so. So what's next after No Kings is we are 2 webinars into a 3-webinar series called 1 Million Rising, where we're training people on how to do non-cooperation. I also am really excited about the work that's coming from the Mayday Strong Coalition, and Labor Day, September 1st, is about to be a day for the records. We actually have a national call about preparation for Labor Day on August 14th. And so folks can go to maydaystrong.org to see that. If you want to know more about what's next from No Kings, you can go to nokings.org/rise, and you can see the next steps there. What's real is that the beauty of the decentralization of our movements is stuff is happening all the time. I can't keep up. There's so many opportunities for people to plug into meaningful work in this moment. And so if you feel overwhelmed and you're trying to figure out what to do, it's like, check out the Working Families Party, check out the No Kings Coalition, check out Mayday Strong, check out the incredible work that's happening with Tesla Takedown and their new campaign around T-Mobile, which I am super hyped about. There's so much excellent work happening right now, and there's so many meaningful ways people can engage it.
All right, I took a bunch of mental notes for me to follow up on. Ash-Lee Woodard Henderson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
My guest has been Ash-Lee Woodard Henderson, co-executive director of the Highlander Research and Education Center. And this is Free Speech TV. We are at Netroots Nation 2025, broadcasting from New Orleans. I'm Sonali Kolhatkar, host of Rising Up with Sonali. Thanks for watching.